Well, I always like to take at least a little bit of our time to talk about our American in Germany thing going on right now.
Oh Lord.
And there's always been a part of it, pandemic oriented and everything. And I wanted to ask you what that's like out there, but save a little time because I want to ask you what's going on, the German perspective of the whole war in Ukraine thing too. But as far as the pandemic is concerned, what's it like now? You've got second and third waves. Fewer people are dying. More people. Sometimes more people are getting it, but fewer people are dying here. Is it like that there? What's going on?
Um, I think it's somehow getting better. A lot of people are getting still sick with it. Obviously, almost everyone I know has gotten it at least once. Um, not in all cases, obviously, but I certainly know a lot of people who got it. I got it myself. I was very grateful to have to have the vaccine, obviously, and I had three of them. Third vaccine was the worst, by the way. The first two, the second wasn't great. The first one was probably the best of the three. The second one was bad. The third one was awful, just awful.
Oh.
And that was in January, so it was really cold. As far as the pandemic in Germany, I think the last time we talked, I mentioned being mad at some younger people who were running around without masks and stuff. Well, I've sort of just accepted that because it's not getting any better. But I think so. I guess I'm not there anymore. We could be in the university without masks in the end. I didn't realize what a privilege that was to sit in lectures and not have a mask on after, doing everything with a mask.
The vaccination rates are kind of high, though. I mean, so.
Oh yeah. I think it's much better than in the States, because we've got anti-vaxxers here, what we as Americans would call anti-vaxxers. But I don't think the numbers are as high as they are in the States. I mean, one thing that I'm now having a problem with, partly because I was doing a doctorate, but partly because of the life shift, I'm having a hard time actually keeping up with American news. I read the New York Times. I have my very, very discounted rate of a subscription for it, and I do read that. But I got to admit, I do more German stuff than American stuff. Although here's a point for the New York Times. The New York Times did a story either a week or a week and a half ago about the so-called €9 ticket, where you can go all throughout Germany for €9. Now, this is related to your pandemic question, by the way. So I'm different from Slavoj Žižek. I have a point and I'm stating it. I read that story in the Times, having recently begun taking advantage of the €9 ticket, because I'm always, not always, but frequently zipping back and forth between Pforzheim and Tübingen. It takes me about 2 hours one way, and I keep having to go up there for various things. Then one has to come back, and I made a day trip with a friend to the sauna 2 weeks ago tomorrow, and so then that was another 2-3 hour trip, and so I've started using the trains, and I thought the New York Times did a really good job reporting on that. So have a look at that story if you want to know. I was just a little mad because they focused up on Hamburg, which is way north from where I am. But as far as how this connects to the pandemic question, I was a little concerned with the so-called €9 ticket because I've never seen the train stations around here so full as they have been this summer, and I sort of roll my eyes and go, well, I'm ready for the €9 ticket to disappear. I can read in peace on the train. But so I thought, with all these people, in these train stations, this is a super spreader event for the pandemic. And no, I think the Times was right when they said it wasn't chaos. One time it felt like chaos, but and trains have been full right? And of course, the more people you put in a contained space, the more risk you're exposing yourself to. But I found it okay. Now, here's a paradox for you. I went up to Hamburg in June because my doctoral scholarship that I received is from a wonderful foundation in Hamburg, and they were having their 40th anniversary jubilee. And well, who am I to pass up a trip to Hamburg to, meet people that I've gotten to know over the last 3 years, and really to say goodbye, because I knew that I was going into the pastorate, and I wasn't going to have time to zip up there for a lot of their events. I think I got COVID on the train back from Hamburg, not at the party, actually. And you'd think I got it at the party, but I heard from reliable sources from the foundation that I was one of the only people who got sick. So I think I caught it on the train. But here's the other paradox. The train ride from Hamburg and the various things that I had to do was less crowded than what I'm describing now. So there's my answer.
I'm glad you yourself are on the other side of it at this point, and we're all vaccinated. My wife had a very mild case here. I'm still one of those what they call novids, people that have never had it, at least as far.
Oh, aren't you? You have well, you know what? I think my flatmate told me about this. I think it was her. I'm almost positive it was her. If you have a certain blood type, you might be immune to it somehow in a way that apparently I just have bad blood. I don't know.
Some people are more resistant than others, I would say.
Yeah, and it's not that I've forgotten about the pandemic. I mean, I actually thought when I got it, if I didn't have this vaccine, my life could be at risk. Right. If I didn't, and so it was a real reaffirmation of the natural sciences, and how that really is a gift. And I think of so many Christians in the States, and perhaps really because of the States and the culture of evangelicalism there, it has come over here, that so many Christians reject the advances in natural science as somehow antithetical to God and God's creation. And that may be where some of this anti-vaccine movement is coming from, right? God will always protect us. Well, have you ever thought that perhaps God is protecting you through the vaccine? That's what I'd like to ask.
Luther advocated using science sensibly to save people's lives. Yes, we've gone into that too. So I did want to talk to you just for a little bit about the whole Ukraine situation too. I mean, Germany being so close to everything, Germany being so dependent on Russian energy, Germany getting refugees, Germany having so many diverse populations that understand refugees and are suspicious of the refugees. What's going on over there? How does Germany seem to be dealing with it? How is the United Protestant churches dealing with it? Do you see signs of refugees? Do you see signs of energy crisis? What's going on?
Well, I actually, during one of my train rides, although I have sadly forgotten which, I actually did see a pair of refugees that were trying to get on the train, and not the conductor, but I'm forgetting what's the term for the assistant to a conductor, or whomever goes through and checks the tickets on the train, was trying to direct these refugees to the proper place that they could go, and which train they were supposed to be on. Of course, I was trying not to eavesdrop, but it was kind of hard to focus on my book, I admit, because I was seeing in front of me what was going, what we're hearing about in the news. I'm a little bit removed from it because I'm in Southwest Germany, right? So I'm not so close to the actual conflict. But I will say this: everyone in Germany is probably, if they have any sense of what is going on, concerned about the winter. And that is because the energy prices are going to increase. We don't know how much yet, but that will be a reality to think about. Now, and the reason this €9 ticket was introduced on the trains is because the government was trying to encourage people to use the public transportation rather than cars. I mean, gas prices are quite high, and that's an understatement. And this obviously has to do with the business going on with oil. And I think it's a tension somehow still just under the surface. I mean, in the public media, sure, but I think where we really become apparent even more so than now is in the winter, when we start seeing some concrete effects of what was happening or what is happening between Russia and the Ukraine. As far as what the churches are saying, well, Baden really speaks out against war. So this, at least historically, is rather anti-Lutheran, although I understand why they do it, and I rather agree. So there was a message about war not being the way and so on. And there are references on at least the church website that I've seen. By church, I mean like church on the whole, not the congregation I'm going to, for resources for refugees. Now, what that looks like, so to say, on the ground, I'll find out when I start my vicariat, right? I mean, that's an answer I just can't really give in the moment, but that would be some initial things that, I mean, I'm certainly, just like going to the supermarket now, I can tell that I can see the inflation. You know, what was $1.99 last week is $2.49 now, and that seems like nothing until you start adding it up.
And there are a lot of disadvantaged people out there that such things are much more noticeable to them than they are to
yes,
others. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And it was, I'm very grateful that I was able to actually increase my doctoral scholarship after the war started. And that was a real blessing, because otherwise I myself would have been in some trouble. And so one sees it on an individual level, and then as I watch German news and as I start to keep my eyes open, I see it more. I mean, part of this, when this started, I was finishing my dissertation. Now, that may sound like a poor excuse, but I knew that I had to have the dissertation done, that I had to have the doctorate, and then I could come into real life. But if I come into real life with no doctorate, I'm not being of any use to anyone. I have to get the doctorate done. So I became quite zeroed in on it. And now that the other side, you know, that I'm on the other side of it, now I've begun to try to consider all of these things that we're talking about now, if that makes sense.
Does the United Protestants have a specific policy toward aiding the refugees or anything like that? Are they sponsoring any shelters that you know of?
Oh, I'm sure they are, because when I had my interview to be accepted into the vicariat, or yeah, that's an overstatement. I already sort of had been accepted, but then there was one additional thing that I had to do in June. It's actually in Pforzheim, by the way. But we did a mock presentation, if you will, but not really, mock discussion of it was myself and four colleagues who presumably also now are entering the vicariat September 1 with me, about how we would set up uh, like a food and snack and worship and places for Ukrainian refugees to go on the weekends and all of this. So if they're having us do that, and I didn't do very well in that part of my interview, by the way, because I confess how the diaconal stuff works in Germany is still somehow a mystery to me. Again, I was doing a doctorate, but they let me in. So, apparently I can learn something. But if that was the mock I don't know what you call it, situational question, that tells me that indeed there must be things going on. And I do know one of the churches in Pforzheim, not the one that I'll primarily be working at, but one associated with the congregation I'll be in, does specialize in diaconal ministry. So I may come into contact with this in the future.
Sure. Before we leave, I wanted to go back to something that I really didn't expect to be hearing during this, and that was the whole learning to and being responsible for the education of children aspect. So that I didn't see that coming, and it sounds like you didn't either. But it's like you say, though, you seem to go. Things come to you for a reason, and you seem to learn from them and come out stronger for them and everything. So you didn't think you were going over there to work with children, but here you are, and it's coming, and that is real interesting. How are you getting ready for that?
Well, how am I getting ready for it? It's such a fascinating question. I knew that I would be teaching in the schools. That part I knew, because every pastor of the Landeskirchen has to do that in some capacity, and I knew that you have to learn that on your vicariat. I thought they would put me in the equivalent of high schools because I am coming in having done a doctorate. I just thought that would make more sense. Well, silly me. They actually want that you learn how to teach the students, the children that are furthest away from your own studies. Now, and that's not just for me. This isn't punish Brach because Brach has a doctorate. This is, as I told you, I'm going to Heidelberg to the seminary to learn about religious education for elementary school kids for 2.5 weeks. So this is all of us entering into this sequence in September. Oh, by the way, did I mention all of this is in German? Pray for me, please. So whether I would stay there teaching with elementary school kids or whether I would be expected to stay there past the vicariat, that I can't answer. I mean, I think that depends wherever I go after the vicariat. You're in a so the vicariat for Baden is 2 years. For Württemberg, it's 2.5 years. So Baden is actually shorter. It's 2 years, and then you have let me do a loose thing of what this is for us as Americans. Basically 2 years where you're like an assistant pastor. You're ordained, but you're an assistant pastor. And then after that, you can take your own congregation. So I don't know where I would end up in Baden. I just know that for now, it's elementary school kids. And as I told you when we started, although for me, that was the shock, right? It was the one thing I didn't want, actually. And now I'm actually really glad that it's what I have to do. So apparently I've changed my mind on that. Or I've just decided might as well look at the opportunity rather than complaining about it. Perhaps that's the case. But I think it was more, I felt so utterly incompetent. It's like I've studied all this time, and I don't have a clue how to teach theology to elementary school kids in the school system. If we want to talk about children's sermons in the ELCA, I did that on my internship. I don't think I was even bad at it. I think I was good. Overall, I think as time went on, at least in the beginning, I was terrible, but after 6 months or so, I got better. I did VBS on my internship as well, which I was terrified of doing, and then I did
Vacation
it.
Bible School?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. I did that just before I left, actually. It was in the summer. It was just probably July. So it was probably about 3 weeks before the end of my internship, something like that. And it was lovely. I was surprised at how well I went, even though I was utterly terrified. Because even then it's like, oh my God, like little kids, here I am completing an MDiv. How am I going to, it was just awful. But it worked out really well. So now, but I haven't been in the parish for 7 years. I was in graduate school, although Germans don't call this graduate school, but we would. I was in graduate school for 7 years. It's been, I realized, my stories of the parish are old. Like, I got to get back into real life. I've been in the academy too long in this sense. So maybe that's some of what's going through my head about this. Oh God, I have to teach the little kids, but now I'm more open to the opportunity. I'm more,
So you're going to be teaching little kids, talking a mile a minute in squeaky child voices in German when you've been mostly doing German with adults and all of that. How did you get your C1 German language yet, or were you close to that?
Well, that's so interesting. So a year ago, they wanted me to do that. They actually waived it.
Really?
When I came, they said your German's good, get the rigororsum done and come. So my friends tell me that I'm getting there, and that I got nothing to worry about. But I don't know if I ever, I never did the test. But in any case, it's probably good I didn't do the test. I was trying to write a dissertation. But what that did, not having that, I've never done well on standardized tests. Let's not talk about the graduate record exam, which I still had to do to get into graduate school in the States. I've never been a standardized test taker. I'm not good. Give me an essay and I can do it, but standardized stuff like that, I don't know. So what it's done when they said in the end, okay, don't worry about that, your German's good, just come, was it enabled me to get, like this in my German. And because it was, I had the intrinsic motivation to do it. And I find now there are some friends that I actually only speak German with now. And that was beginning to be the case when we last talked. But I met with someone a couple of weeks ago, and well, we spoke German for 4 hours. And then I'm perhaps a bit ashamed to say the red wine kicked in. And when midnight hit, I not only couldn't speak German, I couldn't understand him. So we had to do the rest of our time before I left at 12:30 or whatever in English. But that was something, and I'm not saying I did everything perfectly. I'm sure I'm making little things along the way, but that was something I could not have done a year ago. I could not have kept that up without being utterly exhausted and having to switch to English. So there clearly has been a development in my German capacity.
Well, about your German capacity, it seems like every year's gap between our conversations, drastic things are happening. So nothing is going to surprise. Well, few things will surprise. Where I'm going with this is, okay, so we send you over there, and then we talk to you, and I'm staying, and then we get back to you.
I'm really staying.
I'm readjusting to to new theological changes. And so am I going to talk to you a couple of years from now and ask you, are you perhaps ever going to consider going for German citizenship or dual citizen? Do you think you might be there to stay? I don't want to put words in your mouth or force you to say something that you haven't gone before, but it may be a long time till I talk to you again like this. Is that even a possibility? Do you entertain the thought?
Oh, sure. Sure, I'd be lying if I said I didn't. But like so many, but I think on my good days it would be, if I did something like that, it would be a dual. It would be a dual thing, at least what I think from this point. And it's sort of like when I think about my own theological education. You know, I started in the seminaries. I came to Tübingen. I see that they both have gifts, and on my best days I don't put one over the other. Now I've noticed I'm saying on my best days. I would feel similarly about the citizenship thing. I don't even know if it would be possible. I don't know what that would look like. Like so many Americans, I have a lot of student debt, frankly. I should have come to the university sooner, where people started paying me to get a doctorate instead of me paying them. I did the latter for way too long. So there are a lot of unknowns, but I will say this. This is perhaps a microcosm. Anything I've said about the Church of Baden or the Protestant landscape, I would preface all of that with saying, I'm still learning all of this. Please don't take my word as any kind of this is the way it is. I'm still learning new things. I'm sure even with that lovely history of the Baden Church, there is so much more to learn about that. And so if the preface can just be added, all of this is what I'm learning. I've only been here for 3 years. I've only been a part of Baden for 1 year. So that's a microcosm of how I would want to think about Germany as a country. I am deeply grateful that I was received into Germany so openly and so warmly. I also know that that won't be the case everywhere. Right. Part of it is because I came to such an internationally oriented university town, and everybody speaks fluent English here. So, you know, my first year, it was like everybody's speaking to me like I'm like they're English speakers. But apart from that, now it's coming on different levels. And the Baden Church welcoming me in as they have is a true gift. Now, the next layer is Germany as a country. And I want to be really cautious if I start saying things of what Germany is like as a country. My experience is Tübingen. That is my main experience. And my best friend over here is from Marburg. You remember the great Marburg colloquy? That is the debate between Luther and Zwingli on the sacrament. Also, the great Rudolf Bultmann is buried in Marburg. It is now normal for me to see this stuff. So clearly I've been here for some time. So I'm getting a sense of Marburg, but and my scholarship organization in Hamburg. So I'm beginning to put some pieces together, but it's still, I am still an American living in Germany, and I will always be an American. It doesn't even matter if I give up my American citizenship. I will always be an American because that's the culture I come from.
And that's what we're asking for. That's why we're all here. This is for your perspective as an American. We never wanted you to be a spokesman for Germany, Tübingen, any of these institutions. It's always
sure.
It's that your background is very similar to what we're familiar with, and we know that, and we've always wanted to see these things through your eyes, which you've been very, very kind to share with us.
Oh, I'm happy to do it. I guess I almost say that now for any of my German friends who might watch this is to just say, well, now going the other way, I begin to understand now in a way that I didn't when I first came here, my limitations of what I actually know about Germany. And it's sort of like, if I compare it to my academic work, it's like when I was asked to do the 5 subject rigorism, I was asked to go outside of my field and dip in to the 4 other disciplines. And believe me, I read a lot for those tests. That doesn't mean that I'm a scholar in the Old Testament. So in other words, I'm almost saying that for a public clarification, that I'm trying to be aware of my own limitations. And maybe this is what happens with, I guess you could call me an expat now. Maybe this is what happens with expats if you're actually trying to begin to develop an intercultural sensitivity. Maybe a step along the way is, after some time, you start to realize what you don't know. And to connect it back to my academics, because for some reason all of this is connected for me, perhaps it should be, I begin to be aware of the things that I don't know in systematic theology. I have studied systematic theology officially for 10 years. And after my doctorate, I begin to realize what I don't know. Isn't that interesting?
Well, that's where wisdom is too. The people who are more sure of what they know than what they don't know are usually less wise than those who are, in general, painfully aware that the more they know, the more they know they don't know. And so I agree completely.
But it's also just the last thing. It's also not to go too far the other way of saying, well, I don't know anything, I can't say anything. I don't want to do that either. But I just want to say, especially because now this is recorded for posterity's sake, that I'm beginning to get a sense of life outside, what life will be like outside of an internationally oriented university town. And I think for me, that's the biggest gift that the vicariat is going to offer me. Everybody keeps saying to me from Baden, welcome into real life, Mr. Jennings. And I'm thinking, God, is it nice to come there after 16 years of school? Nothing against my schooling, but Lord Jesus, it's time to be with some concrete matters for a while, and then maybe come back to academics someday.
Well, we're certainly hoping that we'll get to talk to you in the future and hear that how the next step is going for you, and how you're growing into all of this, and hopefully the world will be in a better place than it is now in some of these ways.
Let's catch up when I have a sure answer about where my book is going.
Oh yeah.
Because that will be, and now I'll say this for all of the viewers, the Gritsch Fund is, of course, in the acknowledgments for the book. I wasn't allowed to put acknowledgments in the dissertation, actually. That was a bit annoying. I wrote them anyway, and then, but I didn't put them in there. I followed the rules, and then revised them for the book. But the Gritsch Fund, of course, is in there because it is you all who initially got me here, even though we weren't thinking of it in the terms of initially getting me there. We were thinking of putting me there, period, for a semester, and then Brach is going back to the seminaries, but you all have been specifically acknowledged for that role in getting me to Tübingen in what became, speaking of this, we started our conversation with the retroactive eschatology, right? In the end, what became my first semester as a doctoral student in Tübingen, and that was a wonderful semester.
We've really enjoyed watching you grow into the situation, and wish you the best always, and be safe out there, and keep doing good work, and keep learning, and keep in touch.
I'll do that. Thanks so much. It's lovely to catch up.